Welcome to today's Explainer. We're unpacking a truly fascinating document today, one that tackles the very evolution of human belief. This presentation dives deep into a text that makes a pretty bold, profound claim about the current state of our world, that dogmatic religions are basically becoming obsolete, and a new era of universal ethics is dawning. It's a really compelling look at how humanity's spiritual needs are shifting right before our eyes, and I'm thrilled to guide you through the source's logic. So let's just jump right in. The author hits us with a massive paradox right out of the gate. The source acknowledges this fundamental truth. Some form of guiding belief has historically been the backbone of human existence. Yet, at the exact same time, we're witnessing an unprecedented global decline in traditional faith. People are just walking away from temples, mosques, and churches. So, how can both be true? How can something so essential be dying out? Well, that's the central mystery this document seeks to unravel. Section 1. Dharma, the backbone of humanity. To really understand this paradox, we first need to define what actually separates us from the animal kingdom. Now, in the context of this document, the word dharma doesn't mean a specific organized religion. It means a core set of universal ethics and righteousness. And this perfectly illustrates the author's baseline argument. The text argues that without this ethical core of dharma, human beings wouldn't just revert to being animals, we'd actually be far worse. Why? Because animals, like lions or tigers, they only kill for survival based on pure instinct. But humans, we possess high intellect. The premise here is that human intellect, if you strip away ethics and righteousness, becomes a destructive, burning fire. We would literally become the most dangerous, violent beasts on Earth. So having this ethical backbone is absolutely crucial for our survival. Section 2. Science and the changing epoch. Okay, so if ethics are so important, why are traditional religions failing us right now? The author uses this brilliant metaphor to explain it. They point out that while our need for a moral compass hasn't changed at all, the world around us drastically has. The document compares old, dogmatic religions, referred to as madhabs, to a bullock cart. In ancient times, a bullock cart was essential. It did its job well. But as human intellect grew, our societal needs evolved. Today, in an era of bicycles, motors, and high-speed rails, trying to navigate the modern world in a bullock cart is just kind of absurd. The text outlines that just as technology evolved to meet new demands, human thought has evolved, thanks to scientific progress. And that progress has basically rendered ancient dogmas obsolete. They just don't fit the modern mind anymore. Here's the crux of it. The author believes current religions are essentially just blurry, incomplete pictures of that true universal dharma we talked about earlier. Sure, they each hold a tiny fraction of the truth, but none of them possess the whole picture. And because modern humans have this increasing desire for absolute truth, logic, and beauty, these incomplete systems leave followers feeling deeply dissatisfied. The text notes that this is exactly why adherents are becoming more and more rebellious by the day. Section 3. The rising disbelief in mezhebs. Now, this dissatisfaction isn't just some quiet, localized trend. We're talking about a loud, global phenomenon driven by the age of science. Science has actively begun dismantling these ancient myths, creating a massive wave of disbelief across organized dogmas. To prove this, the source kicks off with a perspective from European scholar Professor Max Muller. He observes that the foundational walls of the world's major faiths, Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, and Islam, are practically buckling under the weight of scientific progress. The text emphasizes that science has essentially sparked a quiet rebellion in every thinking mind out there. And it's not just secular scholars saying this. The author points right to Christian clergy to hammer the point home. Father Jaron Arnold is quoted here highlighting the sheer unprecedented scale of what's happening. Think about it. Throughout all of human history, there has never been a period characterized by such a profound lack of faith. The document notes that even though folks might hide their doubts because of societal pressure or fear, the seeds of skepticism are firmly planted in the modern psyche. So why is this disbelief spreading like wildfire? Dr. Wells hits the nail on the head here. Educated individuals today are looking at ancient texts, not as divine, infallible words from the sky, but as historical documents. The text emphasizes that these books reflect the flaws, biases, and limitations of the ordinary men who wrote them. Because of that, the document suggests a lot of people today only cling to religion for selfish or societal reasons, not out of any genuine spiritual conviction. And just to show how this skepticism crosses cultural and geographic lines, the author brings in this thought from Maulvi Muhammad Zarif. It highlights an outright astonishment that supernatural dogmas, literal beliefs in angels, jinns, or highly specific doomsday scenarios, are still lingering in the scientific era. The old myths are just losing their grip on reality. Finally, the source brings it all back down to earth with a localized, incredibly visual reality check from Swami Dayanand. He points out that you don't even need to be a philosopher to see this happening. Just go ask the priests. The text notes that traditional rituals are losing their audience so fast that religious professionals are actually being forced to abandon their jobs, and ancient temples are slowly crumbling into ruins. It's a societal shift you simply can't deny. Section 4. The truth behind communal riots. All right, this is where the explainer gets into a pretty heavy complication. It's a bold question, and the document asks it straight up. If no one truly believes in the dogma anymore, why do people still fight and die over it? Why do communal riots still happen? The text offers a fascinating and really firm explanation for this, utilizing a quote from Mahatma Gandhi to make its case. The stance here is that modern communal violence, it is almost never about genuine religious devotion. Instead, it's a smokescreen. The argument is that these conflicts are driven entirely by hidden political selfishness and the exploitation of old tribal identities. The document insists that once you remove the political manipulation, the so-called religious violence will just vanish because the underlying faith that supposedly drives it has already evaporated. Section 5. The call for a universal religion. So where on earth does that leave us? The dogmas are dying and the violence is just political theater. We're right back to the initial problem. Without a moral backbone, human intellect is dangerous. The document cites a publication called The Englishman to articulate the massive solution we need. It points out that simply proving old religions false is the easy part, but it's not enough. It doesn't actually fix the problem. Society desperately needs a unifying ethical replacement to prevent chaos and give peace to anxious human hearts. We need to construct what the author calls a universal religion. Now, what's genuinely surprising here is the author's tone about all this. You might expect anger, but the text explicitly warns against being cruel or arrogant toward dying faiths. It essentially says that beating a dead religion isn't bravery, it's cruelty. Instead, the author advocates for compassionate, respectful farewell. We need to acknowledge that while these old dogmas, these bullet carts, are useless to us today, they were actually highly necessary once, and they served human society really well in their time. And that brings us to the ultimate proposed solution, Sarvabhaupam Dharma, or the universal religion. The source doesn't envision this as some new set of rigid rules or exclusionary myths. Nope. It's pitched as a broad, unifying ethical framework. Think of it as a philosophical canopy under which people of absolutely every nation, race, and background can sit together completely free from discrimination to find genuine peace and satisfaction. To actually build this universal religion, the author doesn't suggest pulling things out of thin air. Instead, the text points to universally applicable ancient principles that actually align perfectly with logic and science. Specifically, the document proposes laying the foundation with Manu's 10 traits of Dharma, which are basically things like patience, forgiveness, and honesty, and combining those with the ethical restraints and observances, the yam and niyam, outlined by the ancient sage Patanjali. You see, these aren't dogmas about doomsday or supernatural beings. They're just practical, daily habits and boundaries for healthy human living. Which leaves us here. The source document presents this sweeping, compelling narrative of human evolution, taking us from the necessity of ancient myths all the way to the stark clarity of the scientific age. It argues that we've totally outgrown the bullet carts of dogma, but we still desperately need the ethical compass of Dharma to guide our powerful intellect. The blueprint for a peaceful, unified human race is laid out right there in these universal ethics. But the ultimate question remains. The old walls of dogma are crumbling, but are we truly ready as a society to let go of our divisions and actually embrace a universal religion?